Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, as always joined in by prospect expert Dayton Reimer. Today is just Dayton and I on the episode. Peter is not available, but he will be here again as we keep going through the World Juniors. But I mean, World Juniors is what, 10 days away-ish? Actually, it is about 10 days. We're on the 16th of December, and that all gets started on Boxing Day. So we're just around the corner here, and we're going to start. We'll keep going through our rosters here and talking about Finland, who pretty much have released their final roster. They have to cut one guy. That's it's pretty close to the final roster. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Team Canada's final roster. We did go through a prediction piece, but a few of those players didn't make the team. So we're going to talk about that as well. So Dayton, how's it going?
Oh, it's good. Yeah. Just surviving the Christmas season. It's always so busy at this time of year, eh?
Oh yeah, well I haven't even started Christmas shopping, and better get going on that.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
I'm
I
a
always
I'm a
wait
Boxing Day shopping kind of guy. Or not Boxing Day, Black Friday.
Black Friday. Yeah, you get all done there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean I always seem to wait until now, but always seem to get it done, and
That's good.
I'll get it done even though I mean I could get it done earlier, but whatever. But yeah, we're gonna talk. Keep going with our World Juniors talk, and Team Canada, they released their final roster, and there was one guy that we were talking about that didn't make their camp roster. Then they added him, and then got removed again. That was Zane Parekh, and we'll start with him, I think, before we get going with the other, because that's the biggest one that I think didn't make the team. I Are you surprised? I mean, first of all, I mean, are you surprised they added him and then all of a sudden cut him anyway?
Not really. To not be added in the first place and then be cut after being added, I think like they kind of already made their minds up, right?
Yeah,
He is a very talented defender. And with Harrison Brunnick going down with an injury, I believe.
yeah.
They needed somebody to compete for that spot. Perek was the next guy up. I think he was close to making that initial roster, but he just wasn't what they were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about it, him not making and all the offensive defensemen that they didn't take here, like Carter Yakimchuk was a big one too that didn't make the camp roster, obviously didn't make the team. I mean, a lot of guys that we expected are on this final roster. Looking at the final roster now that it's in stone, um, are you surprised by some of the ones that didn't get make from the camp roster that were cut?
Yeah, two guys, I guess three guys kind of jump out at me. The third, I'll explain in a minute. But the first two would be Riley Height and Matthew Wood. I thought Height was practically guaranteed. He's having a really good season. Um, he has 38 points in 23 games for the Prince George Cougars, who have been one of the stronger teams in the WHL this season. He's a really dynamic offensive presence, scores lots of goals. Um, I thought that would have been somebody that could have secured a spot. And to see Matthew Wood not make it after making the team last year kind of blows my mind. I don't know why you wouldn't want the experience in such a short tournament. And it's not like he's having a bad season with Minnesota. He's got 21 points in 19 games. Um, he might, well, he's not leading the team, but he's tied for second. And he's got a game in hand with the person who is tied with him.
Mhm.
So it's like he's to remove him in place of some other guys that they picked kind of confuses me. I'm not sure what the thought process was behind that.
Mhm. I'm disappointed too because everyone knows I like Matthew Wood, and it's not just because he's the same name, but I really love his game. I did his prospect profile way back when at his draft year, and he has had a really good NCAA career so far, and like you said, tied for the team lead, and he's a guy that actually was really good at their last World Juniors, one of their better players even though they didn't make it and didn't go very far in the tournament, he's still one of their better players. So I mean, it is kind of interesting that they didn't add him here. Um, out of the guys that did make it, who do you think should have been cut in place of him?
And that is another tricky part,
It's
right?
tough. Right, yeah.
Um, because I don't want to go ahead and say that none of these guys, or like some of these guys are undeserving of their
Mm,
spot. I think they've all earned their place on this team. Personally, I like some other guys better, and I would have maybe made some choices like I don't know if Luca Pinelli would have been on my team, and with my prediction, he obviously wasn't. But I would have liked to see Wood instead of Pinelli. I think Wood has a little bit of that grit that you want for a tournament like this. Like you don't want somebody who's going to go out and, for lack of a better term, goon it up, right?
hmm
Not somebody who's going to cost the team with a bunch of penalty minutes and suspensions and whatever. But at 6'4" and 205 pounds, like he has that size that can handle a very tough tournament, right? That has a lot of very, very skilled players, and a lot of them are, they do have that experience. It's a 19-year-old tournament. A lot of people have
hmm
said that for many, many years. Um, Maybe someone like Cole Baudouin could be another one I'd replace for height, but then I'm kind of switching. He's also kind of a bigger guy from what I
Yeah.
remember. I'm going to get his stats up here in just a second so I don't screw it up. Yeah, he's 6'2", 209. Very
Yeah.
solid player, right? Um, it's a big reason why he was that first round pick. He has the size and he has that offensive gift as well. Is it better than what Riley Height would have brought to the team? I don't know. I think I would have rather had Wood and Height instead of Baudouin and Pinelli.
hmm
But I think when you're coming down to that, it's splitting hairs. I'm not mad at the choice. I just would have chosen differently. And that kind of comes to my third guy I thought was going to make the team, which was Scott Ratzlaff, who was
hmm
the goalie last year. I don't think he played any games, but he was on the team. He knows how it works. He knows how the tournament works. And I thought having someone like that as a second or third string to support the team would have been a good idea. But instead, they brought Carter George, who, yeah, everyone kind of expected that, and Jack Ivankovic.
hmm
And I think I would have put Ratzlaff instead of Ivankovic, but when they aren't going to play, it's I don't know. It's not a big deal. That's kind of where I'm at though.
hmm I mean, Ivan Kovac had such a great under 18s. I think, I mean, he may not play in this tournament, but I think that might have given him a bit of an edge. He's performed in these types of tournaments already. I Looking at the three goalies, I mean, we talked about in the predictions that this is going to be a toss-up. Who's playing better? Uh, are you looking at any of these three that has the upper hand right now, or is it still a toss-up as to who's going to start?
I think Carson Bjarnason has the starting job right now. He has been outstanding in the WHL. I think last I checked, anyways, he was leading in save percentage. And the Brandon Wheat Kings have been okay. They haven't been fantastic, but they haven't been bad. And in 16 games, just for the actual stats, he has a 913 save percentage, a shutout, and an 8-6-2 record. So that's pretty strong compared to what like he's actually winning.
Mhm.
Yes, no, he still does lead in save percentage, which is pretty impressive,
Yeah.
uh, especially with only 16 games. So I think his performance and his age, he's a 19-year-old. He kind of has that job. Carter George is younger and has been good in the past, but he's also someone who has had moments where he hasn't looked as strong. He's a little bit more of a, if I'm remembering this from the draft, I wrote a bunch about him. Like trying to recall a bunch. Um, he is a bit more of a like a technical goalie, and so
Mhm.
he's always doing his positioning, right? He's a very strong positional goalie, but when it comes to making those big saves, he's not as responsive, and so that has cost him in some areas. And so with Owen Sound, he's got a 905 over 23 games, a 905 save percentage. Now, granted, that's over a 4-13-5 record.
Mhm.
So having a plus 900 save percentage with that as your win-loss record is very impressive. Like he is a
Mhm.
good goalie. Um, but saying how Jack Ivankovic had a strong under 18s. Carter George didn't really. He still had a
Mhm.
shutout, but he had an 889 save percentage in 5 games. Um, you know, there are some drawbacks with him. So I think he's probably the backup because he has a lot of experience playing internationally, but Bjarnason is my starter.
Mhm. I mean, Bjarnason I mean, he's been really good too. So it'll all depend, I think. I mean, again, the pre-tournament games and of course at the round robin and stuff, we'll see who kind of takes the job. I still look back when Devin Levi came in as a third goaltender and no one expected him to be the starter. And he ended up being the starter and actually put up ridiculous numbers too in that tournament. So we'll see how this all goes, who actually takes the job. But I think it's Bjarnason's too. It's just I mean, Ivan Kovic could come out of nowhere and do something too. We'll see how that all plays out.
Yeah. And that's the fun of the World Juniors is you don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like we all talk about, oh, this team's going to win and this team's going to get silver and like you got a 50-50 shot pretty much. But then there's all of a sudden it's like, oh, Slovakia might get a bronze. Czechia has silver. We
Yeah.
don't predict those things. Or someone comes out like Devin Levi as a starting goaltender. That's that's the fun of the World Juniors is you don't really know what's going to happen, and there's always a surprise every year.
Yeah. That's the beauty of a short tournament. Anyone can get hot for a couple weeks and then all of a sudden you're really good and your team is really good. So we'll see how that all goes. One final thing on Team Canada. When you're looking at, we were talking about underage guys making the team. There's actually a lot of guys that made this team that are not drafted. You're looking at guys like Matthew Schaefer, Porter Martone, I, Gavin McKenna, not drafted until draftable until 2026. Of course, I don't think anyone really said that he's not going to make this team of how he's played this season. And he has been really good in international tournaments in the past too. Are you surprised this many undrafted guys made the team? And second part of the question is, how impactful will they be?
Yeah, I am surprised. I've said in the past on this podcast that Canada typically doesn't go with a lot of underage guys. They have gone in the past, like one, maybe two on a team, but it's rarely ever been more than that. And so to see three undrafted players on their roster when this is a 19-year-old tournament is quite a testament to how they think these guys are going to do. Um, I think somebody like Porter Martone is going to play a pretty big role. Um, and that's somebody you can kind of put on the third or second line and give that a really solid, uh, stumbling over my words here a little bit. You can kind of build it into a really solid, like almost like a energy line
Mhm.
with a lot of high end skill. Gavin McKenna, you don't put someone like that on a third line.
No.
That's a first or a second line guy, and he has the skill to back it up. He is, following in the footsteps of Connor Bedard and Connor McDavid and all of those guys. He's going to make some noise at this tournament, and it might not be, record-setting or groundbreaking, but he is going to be noticeable. For Matthew Schaefer, I would expect him to play a little bit more of a depth role,
Mhm.
kind of bringing him into this tournament. He's not going to be in the NHL next year, most likely. And so he'll be back at this tournament and be playing a huge role. So get him that experience, get him maybe a couple of games in sort of like a 7 minutes a night type of thing. That's what I would expect.
Mhm. I think so too. I think, like Porter Martone and McKenna, I think are going to play bigger roles in the forward group. McKenna, I mean, I do see that that type of Connor Bedard type performance. In his couple years before he was supposed to be drafted, where he was really good in the tournament. He didn't blow the doors off anything, but
Mhm.
he still was noticeable and played a pretty big role, and I think than most of those underage type guys do. And Schaefer, I do get that too. I don't think he's going to play a major role in the blue line because they do got a lot of veteran guys that are going to take up those minutes. And even a guy like Minio, I don't know how big of a role he'll be with all this guy. I mean, I was excited that he made the team. I wasn't really sure he was going to, but from his season and his play style, I think he does fit of what they want. A good two-way defenseman. But in the pre-tournament game, I believe today, or practice, I was seeing on Twitter, he was in the bottom, the pairing that's not in the rotation. He was on the fourth pairing, I guess, when you're looking at all these. And I mean, that doesn't always mean he's not going to play, but he was with Caden Price on the final, the fourth pairing. So there are a lot of guys that may play ahead of him, but I'm really excited that he made the team and he could have the potential to play play a role. We'll see how big of a one. But
Hmm.
yeah.
And he can be kind of nasty sometimes too. Uh, the whole Seattle team can be kind of nasty this year, but as their captain, he's got that great leadership and he can play a little bit of that pest. And if they need somebody to go out and just drive another team nuts, that's somebody who's going to get some ice time. I would maybe expect to see him play against the Americans.
Yeah, I would say so. Those rivalry, he probably would fit
Oh, yeah.
playing against, yeah, for sure. So we'll see how all the pairings actually go once those games get going. Yeah, Canada's got a good chance. They've got a really good roster, as they always do. And we'll do our predictions later on, but I think Canada's got a good chance of being in the medal rounds this year than what they did last year, even though we did have a bit more concerns, I think, about their roster last year than we do about this one. But we'll see how it all goes. All right, jumping to Finland, who I guess they have pretty much have their final roster. One guy will be cut before the tournament actually begins. So let's start with their forwards and look at them here. Anyone you want to highlight that pretty much has made this team that you're looking at throughout this tournament?
Consta Hellenius is going to be one of their best players.
Yes.
I'd
Yeah.
almost put money on that if I was a sports betting person, but I'm not. I don't mess around with that. He has been playing in the AHL. He is with the Rochester Americans. He's got 16 points in 26 games as a rookie in the league. That's pretty good. The AHL is like a surprisingly tough league for anybody who, um, like it's easy to forget about that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And let's go players under 20 years old. He ranks second in points. He is only behind Dalibor Dvorsky, who also will be at the World Juniors playing for Slovakia. And he sits ahead of Bradley Nadeau, who will be for Canada. He is a very talented player. He was on the team last year that didn't finish very well. And he was a little bit disappointing, only 2 points in 7 games. I think he's going to want to make that up. He will come in with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He has world championship experience. He's got that professional experience. He's going to be somebody to really pay attention to, and he's going to do his best to drive that offense as this strong two-way presence for Finland.
Yeah, another guy I'm watching is Kasper Halttunen. I mean,
Mhm.
he also has played in the AHL this season. He was sent back to the London Knights though. And I mean, he's doing pretty well over there too. He's got 6 points in 9 games. He hasn't, and he had 4 points in 6 games in the AHL with the Barracuda to start. Of course, I mean, that's actually really good. I'm actually surprised he was sent back. But I mean, thinking that there's always difference. I mean, this happened in for the Abbotsford Canucks too, where just where Bloom got sent back to the OHL because he was kind of struggling to get minutes. That could be the case with Halsinen too. I get him back to the OHL, and he's going to play a big role with London, and he's going to be good in this tournament again. He was really good last year, had 6 points in 7 games. He was captain of the under 18 team as well and had 10 points in 5 games back then. So, I mean, he's well versed in this tournament and he's a really skilled player. He's probably going to be playing, of course, in their top six. Second round pick of the Sharks back in 2023 and had a really good season last season too, 32 goals for the Knights as well. So, That's going to be a guy I'll be watching for Finland, and of course, like you said, Helenis. There was talk that he could have even made the Sabres out of the preseason because he had a really good
Hmm.
training camp. I don't know how much he'd help the Sabres at this point with their 10-game losing streak, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, he's going to be a big part of Finland along with Haltonen. Uh, yeah, their forward group, I mean, there's a lot of experience, North American experience. They've got quite a few guys that have played in the WHL, OHL, USHL, and then of course a few back in Finland. So I mean, they could. I mean, I'd never count Finland out because they always seem to surprise because they've got such a great two-way system and they always work hard and play every team hard. So no, there's no, you don't write them off ever. So we'll see how they go. Defensemen, what are you looking at for the defense that they're bringing forward? I mean, I'm looking at them. Aaron Kirby-Harju kind of stands out. Last season, I believe he was hurt, so he didn't play. I might be wrong on that, but I
No, I
mean,
think that sounds really familiar without looking it up. That sounds right.
yeah, because I know there was he had the injury problems last season. Came back really late in the term. I'm just looking that up right now. Yeah, he did not play at the World Juniors. So he did play at the in the under 18s, 5 games. So I mean that he didn't play in the World Juniors though. So he's healthy this season, which is good. He's has 10 points in 32 games. So he'll have a chance to be a big part of this team. Of course, was drafted a lot later than anticipated by the Minnesota Wild in the fourth round, when there was talk that he could potentially have been drafted in the first round. Um, what do you think about this defense? About Kiviharu kind of being the headliner, I guess, unless there is someone else that you're kind of looking at on this defense core.
No, I think Kivi Haru is going to come in as their top guy. Um, One of the best lines that came out of the draft last year was when Bill Guerin went up to Aaron after selecting him, and Aaron very quickly said, "You just made the best pick of the draft," or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
The confidence he has, and he knows how good he is and how much damage he can do on the ice. He's coming in with a lot to prove. And I think in a short tournament like that, you're going to come out guns blazing. He is going to be a very dangerous part of this team's defense. He's got great speed. He's got great offensive skills. He's been playing in the Liga the whole season, 10 points, 32 games. I can't remember if you mentioned that. Um, at the under 18s last year, he was great. Or no, it was 2 years ago. Yeah, because
Yeah.
he missed a lot of time last year. And so I think because he missed so much time, he does want to make that up, and
Mhm.
he'll be coming out with a lot of firepower. And he'll have some help too. Emil Pianiemi, he was a third round pick by the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2023. Currently, he has 34 points in 32 games with the
Mhm.
Kingston Frontenacs, who have been a very strong team, but it helps to have somebody leading the defense on that. He is their defensive leader, by the way, with that for 34 points, ahead of guys like Quentin Burns and yeah, actually not a lot of big names on their defense now that I'm looking at it. Good offense, not a lot on their defense. So he's been a big part of their team and helping them do as well as they have been. So yeah, those are definitely two guys that I'll be watching. I think they will give the Finnish defense quite a punch.
They also got BT Väisänen, who was drafted by the Utah Hockey Club this past draft in 2024, playing with Medicine Hat Tigers. 9 points, 29 games. Was also at the under 18s last under 18s as well. So I mean, there's some experience internationally there. So I mean, I think those three will be the biggest guys. I mean, they got some other guys that could potentially surprise as well, but two North American guys are playing in North America right now. that will probably play a big role. And then Kiviharju, of course. I'm hoping he has a really strong tournament because I
Mhm.
really like his game. Again, undersized guy, but I think the Wild. I mean, they seem to be getting all these steals of defensemen, and then they got add Adam Jiricek, David Jiricek, David Jiricek to their team too. So I mean, they've got a really strong defensive pipeline coming up. Uh, and Kibbe Hardy is going to be a big part of that too, and they get him in the fourth round. So
Mhm.
yeah. All right, goalies. There are some interesting names here. What are you looking at the goaltending for Finland?
Yeah, before the podcast, we mentioned that their goaltending situation was kind of interesting. So they've got, I think, three guys who could compete for starter, which is kind of a rarity among the teams right now. The favorite might be Kim Saarinen,
Mm,
who is 18, hasn't played on the team before, but has been playing quite well in the Liga. An 896 save percentage, but he's got a shutout over 14 games. He showed that he was one of the best goaltenders in the draft last year, and the Seattle Kraken snapped him up in the third round. At 6'4", he has some pretty good size as well. So he's going to be somebody to really compete for that starting spot. But he'll have to beat out Noah Valley for it first, who was on the team last year. And in 2 games, he had a 929 save percentage and a shutout. So he has the numbers to back him up. His numbers haven't been as strong in the Liga this season, with an 876 save percentage over 11 games. So there is maybe a closer gap than one would assume, but I think he's maybe the current starter, but his job isn't secure.
mhm.
And then, of course, the last guy to watch out for is Petteri Rimpinen, who also comes into his first World Juniors, was on the under 18s last year, as well as the Helinka Gretzky Cup. Not fantastic numbers in those tournaments, but in the Liga, he's got a 916 save percentage over
Mhm.
24 games, and he's 18 years old. He is the smallest of all of them. He's at 6 foot, 176 pounds, but he's clearly got the skill. Very athletic goalie, so he could come in and steal some games if they need him to do it. I think he probably sits third string right now, just based on kind of reputation and where the Finns seem to be playing their guys. But yeah, it's kind of an open field that mm, they could run three goalies, and I think they have done that in the past.
Mhm. Yeah, they're usually I mean I think they kind of pick one later as they get into the medal rounds if they do get there. But yeah, they run through whoever's has the hot hand, and you're looking at a few guys that could potentially get that. Saarinen, I think, has a big chance of becoming the starter. But yeah, I'll have some competition looking at the other two guys because they can definitely um, be starters too. All right. What do you think about the team as a whole, Finland? Or where do they kind of rank looking at the other teams here? I mean, like I say, we'll do our predictions a little later, but where do they kind of sit with all the other powers here?
That's such a good question. Like Finland is always so hard to predict.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, Consta Helenius, is it Helenius? I feel like I'm saying that wrong.
I usually say Hellenius. Yeah.
Okay. Um, he is one of the better prospects outside of the NHL. Aaron Kiviharju, also very, very skilled. We didn't even talk about Julius Miettinen, who has
Yeah.
been very good with the not Seattle, Everett Silvertips.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he's such a strong, dominant forward. Like those are guys that make things happen. Their goaltending too is pretty strong. Like all three of them have playing professional right now. Does that get over other teams like Czechia or the United States or Canada
Mhm.
or Sweden even, right?
Yeah.
That's really hard to say. They're definitely a medal contender in my mind, but maybe finish fourth.
Mm.
Like I think they're up there, but just not quite at the level that would take home a medal.
they always play such a great team game. I think
Hmm.
that's what kind of pushes them forward. And they all, whenever they join the team, doesn't matter what level, they all seem to play the same. Yeah, guys that are like high-powered offensive guys, they all of a sudden become they just kind of fit in. They know the system, they know how to play, and they always frustrate teams. I mean, just going back, it's back to Tuukka Rask days. I'm going way back, but their goalies can win games for them, and then they play such a great forecheck and hard-working type style that they can beat any team. And so you never count them out, like I said. So I mean, I never count them out as being a medal contender, even though you're looking at their roster, like, yeah, they have a couple really good names, but can they stand up to the powers that can put really big names on their fourth line? Like, I mean, I you never know. They could always compete. So
And they can flip-flop too, right? It wasn't that long ago where they were facing relegation.
yeah,
And they had a decent team. Like it wasn't that they had no stars or anything like that. But all of a sudden they just couldn't win games and they just fell completely flat and managed to beat, I think it was Latvia to
yeah, remember
maintain
that.
maintain their spot. If they had lost, that would have been the weirdest thing because they were supposed to host the next tournament.
Yeah,
I can't remember what year that was, but
it wasn't that long ago from what I remember.
no.
Don't think it was that long ago. But yeah, it is interesting what how they kind of go.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're in the gold medal game with Sweden. I mean, like,
Yep.
yeah.
It's like they have to back up a really good year with a really poor year. And just pendulum.
Yeah. And it always seems to they always seem to play Sweden. It
Yeah.
wherever. I mean, they was playing for bronze or
Which always makes for a good game.
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, this it's like Canada US. I mean, it's the
Hmm.
same type of rivalry. So we'll look forward to see who they match up with and how they do. But I think they've got a pretty, again, really a roster that can potentially compete with those teams. So we'll see. All right, let's finish our show with our usual prospects of the week. And Dayton, who do you got to highlight here?
I'm going to cheat and do two because Peter's not here.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
my first is going to be Riley Height. Um, for him not to make the team, I think was you know, not my choice, is what I said.
Yeah.
He returned to the Prince George Cougars just a couple of days ago on the 14th and put a goal away, which extends his goal streak currently to 3 games. He's got 5 points in his last 3 games. He's a fantastic offensive force, and I think he's going to do some damage in Prince George. I bet he's feeling that he should have been on that team. So he's going to be definitely uh, ready for a hot streak. And my next guy is going to be my homer pick, which is Brandon Lazowski for the
Mm,
Blades. And it actually works too as a former Maple Leafs prospect for Peter.
there you go.
Yeah. He's been really good lately. Just all over the puck, getting like as many scoring chances as he possibly can. Last game on Sunday night, he had 7 shots on net and 2 goals, despite losing to the Brandon Wheat Kings 4-2. And the Blades have been on a bit of a losing streak, but
Mm.
he has not given up on his points. He has, just let me count quickly here, three, six, a 9 game point streak. And in that time, he has two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 goals. 8 goals in 9 games. He's been absolutely incredible for the Blades. Uh, a very, very strong shooter. He is always in the right place at the right time. And those are my two prospects of the week.
All right, I will pick two as well, and quickly,
Might as well.
might as well. And they're both homer picks too. Well, they're homer picks for me, both of them here. Um, One, I'll start with Max Sasson. I know I've highlighted him before, but he deserves it again. He's actually turning out to a pretty good guy in the NHL for the Canucks. He's been up with the team for, I mean, up and down because they keep sending guys down for their cap things, but he's back up and he's playing. he's actually going to be playing in the top six tonight against the Avalanche, playing with Pedersen and DeBrusk. And before he was in the bottom six, he scored his first NHL goal in that 5-1 loss to the Boston Bruins. It was the only bright spot in that game. But he's been really good. Good energy guy, like I said before, and he's actually shown quite a bit of skill in the NHL too. He's got good speed. He can seems to be able to play that energy type game. Um, and he's got 4 points in the NHL too, a goal and 3 assists, which is actually pretty decent. And he's going to end up having a good chance with a couple really skilled players in DeBrusk and Pedersen. So I'm excited to see what he does tonight in a bigger role than what he has been. So Sasson, undrafted out of the NCAA, really, really happy for him that he's able to kind of carve out a little bit of I mean, how long it'll be, we'll see. But right now, he's looking pretty good. All right, and my other one's a goaltender, Nikita Tulipilo, who's had back-to-back shutouts in the AHL. 15 save shutout on the 14th on Saturday, and then on Sunday he had a 27 save shutout. So he hasn't allowed a goal in 2 games, and in a season that he hasn't really been that good. He actually has 3 shutouts, but his numbers overall don't. If you're just looking at his numbers, they're not very good. 2.64 goals against average, 897 save percentage, but 3 shutouts. So that's kind of helping his numbers. Otherwise, he's allowed quite a bit, but he's on a bit of a hot streak. And for a guy that is now well, he's kind of been the starter in Abbotsford, but Shelovs is now probably going to be back to being the starter now that Demko's back. But he's had a bit of a hot streak now, so hopefully those can kind of get his numbers back to respectable. But Tolopilo and Sasson, my 2 prospects of the week, both undrafted prospects too,
There you go.
which is great.
Just before we close, I forgot to mention, Brandon Lazowski, with his last 2 goals, ranks 5th all-time in Blades goals with 139. So definitely good on him. That's a huge achievement.
For sure. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully you can keep it going, keep
Yep.
raising that up.
By the end of the season, he could be second.
Yeah, it's who's first, or how far away is he from first? Probably quite a
From
bit.
first, he is like 40 goals about.
That's like
So first probably isn't happening. Unless he goes on a fantastic tear. And if he does, please, that would be amazing. Yeah, he's at 139. First is at 190.
Yeah, a bit of a way.
But that's closer to 50.
And
Yeah,
he's in his last year of,
this is his last year.
so that's it.
But second place is 155. And if he's at 139, that's reachable.
That's within striking distance.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see where he ends up at the end of the season.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll
Well,
keep you I'll keep you up to date with all the Blades coverage.
sounds good. All right. Well, thanks, Dayton, for coming on, talking World Juniors and some of the prospects outside of the World Juniors too. But make sure to check out everything at thehockeyriders.com, all of our prospect coverage, all the World Juniors coverage, which has to be a lot of it. Already quite a bit coming out or two right now. Looking at players to watch. We got the final roster pieces coming out. All those will be out before the tournament, and lots of other feature pieces. But to make sure to check in all that out. And yeah, but until our next episode, we will see you next time.